Roy, the Wonder Boy. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So, we had a little bit of a scheduling change. You were supposed to come on my live stream today, but that's going to be Thursday. I think this will probably get posted on Saturday, just a little bit later because we have the SoFi Weekly and stuff tomorrow. But that being said, this actually gives us a lot more time to talk about PayPal rather than splicing in some SoFi stuff and other Shopify news that had happened that day. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, we're both bearish on SoFi, so we don't want to talk about that stock. No, just kidding.
I
Exciting
I know
times for
that.
both.
Yeah, you just bought 10 more shares. Steven forced you to.
I did, and I'm close to buying more. If it keeps going down, I absolutely will. Even though it's my second largest, well, I don't know. I'll have to check after the fall, but I think it's my second largest holding. PayPal is right up there, so it might have overtaken it today.
That was going to be my big question: is where does PayPal actually lie on your holdings now?
Yeah, it's so SoFi and PayPal have always been neck and neck, and of course, SoFi had that great run up at the end of the year, and so it became number two by a decent amount. And I have a lot of leaps in SoFi too, and PayPal, stock and leaps there as well. So yeah, right now, I would guess that PayPal fell a good bit today. I'd guess that SoFi's number two still, and Robinhood's like usually a distant third. When it spiked to 13 something, and SoFi hadn't started its run yet, it was catching up. I'm like, man, PayPal's about to become my fourth largest position, so it's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I don't mind it. I think that 58 is completely undervalued. I was just reading today that Adobe just posted their holiday season for or holiday spend for e-commerce.
Mm-hmm.
They said a total of $222 billion was put out as a breaking new record, up nearly 4.9% year over year. A lot of that was actually buy now, pay later, which I want to talk about. But, what percentage of that being or going to potentially one of the largest checkouts, PayPal, right? If there's even a 5% increase record wise, how much of that can PayPal keep in terms of market share? And like, if they are a company that is, quote unquote, dying, to have a market that's still growing this fast is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's one product, and we'll get into it, that it's growing rapidly. Schulman, in his departure, he said that's one of the best things that they've ever done. That, and of course, the stable coin, spoke highly of it. And this season, even if there was naysayers and doubters, I think buy now, pay later, as far as actually working here in the United States, has convinced a lot of people that yes, it's working, it's legitimate. You saw the run into Firm. I'm not in that stock, but yeah, PayPal has I think, even better offering than Affirm.
So in the Adobe Analytics thing that they had posted, they said there was $16.6 billion were spent in terms of buy now, pay later, a 14% increase year over year.
That's great.
14% rather than the compared 5% that the actual e-commerce market is growing at.
Yeah, I went with the wife to a mall, and we were walking around, and buy now, pay later was plastered everywhere. And I saw Sezzle, I saw Klarna, I saw a couple others as well, and Affirm. I think maybe an Afterpay. PayPal is just kind of the hidden player. You don't sometimes see that, especially in the in-person, but they're around. They're big.
Yeah. No, for me in Canada, the only one I really see is, well, I mean, I do see Afterpay from time to time, but it's all Affirm up here.
Yeah.
But they are one of the few fintech companies that has really branched out into Canada, right?
Yeah.
PayPal buy now, pay later is not even opened up here. So, one day.
Not yet.
Not yet.
After Canada becomes a 51st state, then we can talk.
So. Yeah. I'm ready. I'm ready for my green card. Like, just take us over. I'll put the flag on my house immediately.
All right. Like the national anthem, so that'll be the state anthem. It'll be like real simple,
But that being said, let's talk about some buy now, pay later, because this is something that I think actually sparked us to want to have a conversation. I'd been talking about how I think that this Affirm run up is not completely ridiculous. I just wouldn't be getting in at this price. I don't think that they have it in them to continue to take market share in this space, or at least make it nearly as profitable as a company like PayPal.
Right.
I'd love to chat about this. How does a company like PayPal and Affirm differ so much on a product that seems so similar to the consumer?
Yeah, and that's a good question. There's a lot of providers of buy now, pay later, and they have a lot on the surface of similar features for the consumer. And there are a few differences, but it's really in the back end for the merchant that consumers don't see, and for the company itself, for PayPal, that you see the real differences. And so for us as a consumer, most of them work about the same way, where you download the app if you don't have it already, you click, you'll fill out a short application. Some will actually do a credit check. Most it's just a soft check, and then you're able to use it. And so you
Right.
just scan it, you check out automatically. Most of them have the pay in four, and that does the 4 payments. Now on the front end for consumers, there are a few differences though. One of those is the name and recognition of PayPal itself. Not Afterpay and Affirm. People might be familiar with those. Probably not Klarna so much. Like, what? How do you even say that? Like, what is that? Sezzle.
Yeah.
Nobody's heard of Sezzle, except for people that work for Sezzle. But for PayPal, it's like, oh yeah, it's been around for a long time. It's a name that consumers trust, and it's integrated fully in their product suite. So a lot of the people that are actually consumers and that use this pay later for PayPal, they're known by PayPal. They already know them, and so all they have to do is click a button. And they have to agree to the terms, of course. It lays out everything right there. And PayPal knows exactly who this person is. They have mountains of data on them and also the merchant. And so they use that to make that informed decision. And even when they don't know the consumer, they actually have that network advantage as well. But for the consumer, it's seamless, it's well integrated, it's instant. And some services, not Affirm, but Klarna, you actually have to pay for monthly as a consumer.
Yeah.
It's a small fee. It's $5, $4.99. Yeah, it's free for PayPal. Doesn't cost, or free for the PayPal user. Doesn't cost them anything on the front end. Yeah, if you're already a PayPal user, it makes it real easy to be like, okay, should I actually trust these people with my information? You're like, it's PayPal. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Right.
So.
Yeah, if you don't need another application, if you don't need another app or whatever, it's much easier to do that. If you're like my girlfriend, for example, she doesn't have space on her phone for another app, so it's
Yes.
just all photos. So she would just want everything in one in one app.
Absolutely. And people like that. Like, they hate when things are divided up into a lot of different products. That's one of the reasons why Apple Pay later actually is a pretty credible product themselves. They do a little bit more of a check on people. They do have a lot of data on you, but there are some differences and significant ones on the back end as well. So, and really on the back end, that's where things get interesting. So for the merchant perspective, you might ask, okay, well, how is that handled? Well, the merchants generally with all these products are paid the same, that they're either paid instantly or like within a business day. They don't have to wait around for these installments or anything. The risk actually goes on the company. And that's the same with PayPal. That's the same with Affirm. And so it's a little bit different on the fee structure. Actually, it's significantly different. So from the merchant perspective, somebody like Affirm comes in and they negotiate a fee. And this is not very transparent. There's a wide range of guesses, even as much as 10%. I don't think 10% is credible, but something like 5%, maybe a little bit less than 5% for larger merchants, like the Walmart partnership that Affirm has. So they'll come in, they'll say, okay, on the front end of what you're supposed to be receiving, we're going to take our cut. Now, fees are pretty normal. The difficult thing is there's PayPal is actually a payment processor, and so in addition to paying the Affirm their fees, they have to pay whatever Braintree or Adyen that they're using, that payment service platform, or Stripe. And so they'll have basically a double whammy of fees. Now, PayPal is very different because they don't charge a fee at all for their buy now, pay later to the merchant or the consumer. And so then the question is, okay, how do they actually make money? And it's very simple. It's well integrated. It's just PayPal branded. That they take the same branded PayPal fees that they have and they charge that to the merchant, the same as they would for a non-buy now pay later transaction. A lot of these are no interest, so there's a little bit of risk for PayPal, not much. They sell most of the little bit more risky ones to Europe, to the KKR collective. But yeah, for the most part, that's nice for the merchant because they're like, okay, we don't actually have to take a cut beyond PayPal branded. This helps PayPal in turn grow their branded product. And then there's a significant difference when it comes to refunds. So, things get returned. I don't know about you. Did you return any things after Christmas?
Yeah, some things for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and we returned a good number of things. I went to for Amazon and another vendor as well, dropped off a bunch of stuff that we're just like, hey, we're not going to use this at all. We want our money back. I'm kind of embarrassed. But we have like almost $400 in credit on Amazon right now, just because all the stuff that we returned, and we could have done more.
What
Well,
was the company that PayPal used to own that dealt in the logistics side of that? Because they actually,
yeah,
what was that called again?
happy returns.
Happy Returns. Exactly. They sold that to UPS, right?
They did, yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be officially finalized Q4, so we'll see that, as well as the finalization of the KKR deal, the buy now, pay later. So the two things to look for in Q4. That will actually affect EPS quite positively, although just for the quarter. Algorithms that are picking up that, they might get really excited for a second until the people that run the algorithms say, hey, calm down. This is a one-time thing. Don't get too excited.
Right.
But yeah, for the return process, usually like with PayPal and other vendors, if I'm returning to Amazon, Amazon doesn't charge the shop the fee that they had. They return that, they return the fee. Affirm, they say, nope, you'd agreed to give us this percent of the transaction. We don't care whether the transaction is happening or not. We're going to keep our cut. And if that's 5%, that adds up real fast to the
Sure.
merchant.
Yeah.
They don't like that. Versus with PayPal, it's like, oh, you're returning it. No reason for us to keep the fees. A transaction didn't happen. So merchants, I would guess, have to love this. A lot of times the other buy now pay later people, they'll sneak in as far as making it up on the other side. They'll say, okay, if you place us upstream, if you show our buy now pay later checkout before anybody else, we'll give you a cut. We'll give you some money. We'll negotiate that fee. But a lot of them have gone away with from that. They may be going back with the vigor that we've seen buy now pay later be accepted, but PayPal usually will benefit from that upstream placement. But yeah, it's a different product for the merchants for sure. And of course, there's some similarities as far as like the lift value, the amount that buy now pay later actually generates, the added value to orders. Those sort of things. There's some other differences as well too, just for PayPal. But did you have anything to add as far as the differences on the merchant side?
Yeah, I really wanted to highlight the difference in like the merchant fees, right? So or merchant rates, I should say. Back whenever Affirm got that Peloton deal, which really skyrocketed them into popularity.
Yeah.
They were offering 0% APYs to consumers, and it seemed like a free loan. The truth was that Peloton was paying your interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. To Affirm, they were making lots of money, but Peloton was willing to, pay that rate because they were giving their products to consumers that might not have been able to buy them up front, or maybe not as willing. So the difference is here is that PayPal doesn't really ask you for that. So the offering from a merchant side to say, hey, we want financing on our products. We have a big, price tag on our things. I'm buying an entire gym for my home. I was just using buy now pay later for this right now because it was offered at 0%. So why not, right?
Yeah.
And so a bunch of stuff is coming in. It from the merchant side, for Nautilus, for example, talking about the gym equipment and stuff, if they are to take Affirm and have to potentially pay out that rate, or PayPal for that transaction, and it would still be the normal rate that they're offering PayPal through anyways, that's a very clear distinction on which one they would want to choose and which one they would want to offer. So,
absolutely.
And the only way that PayPal has that pricing advantage is because they have all the other business that they deal in payment processing, through branded checkout, through Venmo, through Braintree, where Affirm, that's their only business, right? So that I think is so important for people to understand, is that as this industry becomes way more flushed out and becomes more competitive on the actual rates, that it is going to go to the lower cost operators. And that is going to benefit greatly in the favor of the MasterCards, the bank operators, the PayPals, and the Apple Pays. Those are the ones that are going to survive. I don't actually think that without additional innovation, that Affirm will be able to offer the rates that they're offering today, because they're just way too high.
Yeah, they'll have to grow meaningfully. They'll have to bring that down. I'm sure with the Walmart deal that they accepted a much lower rate. I can't imagine Walmart saying yes and saying, "Oh yeah, we'll lose 4% of our revenue off the top." No
Well,
way.
that is what Affirm has done so great, in my opinion. Why I think
Mhm.
Max Levchin is one of the best to ever do it is he's going to the largest companies in the world, Shopify, Walmart, Amazon, and saying, "Hey, why don't you take a cut of our company, right? And then you'll benefit in our success."
Yes.
And so let's split and really partner up here so it doesn't feel like you're buying from us. We're kind of collaborating.
Yeah.
Um, and it's such a great idea. PayPal kind of doesn't do that. They have to go fishing for themselves. But also though, they have 400 million customers. They've already went fishing for the last decade.
Yeah.
you know,
And that's yeah, they don't have to do this just because they have 30 million merchants and 400 million consumers that use it at least once a year, if not multiple times. And of course, more that are inactive that have they just have to reactivate their account. So yeah, they don't have to do anything like this at all.
So I would like to touch on, because you wrote about it so greatly, is what's the benefit of the merchant to even offer this? What happens to, let's say, I don't know, average order volumes whenever buy now, pay later is used?
Yeah, so the stats, I want to make sure I get these right. Average order volume increases an average of 30%, and actually 55% for larger retailers. That's the Nordstroms, the Apples, and churn is reduced 10 to 15%. And it's additive. It's not cannibalistic. So when you offer buy now pay later, it's not saying, oh well, they're buying buy now pay later products, but they're paying less on the other side. It's like no, it's just going to absolutely add to the volume of the order, especially right now with the consumer being perhaps a little bit weaker this holiday season. Buy now pay later was all the rage, and I'm sure that number has probably gone up, and also a 30% higher order frequency. So people use it for larger volumes more often. So it's not just oh yeah, I'll buy everything now and then do less buying over the next 4 months. So
Right,
um,
right.
whether that's great for the consumer or not, I mean, it's great that they're not paying the interest if they're doing the pay in four. It's great for the vendor as well. And if I was a vendor, man, I'd be offering that all day, every day, especially when it doesn't cost you anything extra beyond PayPal branded.
Right. No, I think, and if you could speak on as well, just the difference in the class of authorization rates and loss rates for PayPal as well, much higher in their favor because they know their customer a lot better than a lot of these other players.
Yeah,
And
a lot of the players are starting from basically ground zero, and so they don't know the consumer at all. They're very reliant on a few different reports that they have to pay for, or they do that soft credit check, which can only take you so far. There's a lot better
right,
tools, especially with AI, especially if you have a large network of data. And so the network vault of PayPal is not just for consumers, but also for merchants. So usually PayPal will know both parties and both sides of the equation. They'll know the risk on the merchant side as far as like the amount that'll be returned or default risk with that type of product. They'll know the industry. They'll know what's happening in that country. They'll know the consumer itself. They'll know their past however many transactions. They'll know
right,
so much like and some people are frightened about that, but all they're doing is just using that to instantly give you approval or not. And so there's a 90% authorization rate. That's the highest authorization rate of anybody in the industry. The standard, and it depends who you talk to, is 70 to 85%, which it's like, oh, 85%, 90%, that's not a big deal. It is if you're a merchant. It's significantly different, especially if it's like, hey, these guys don't charge me any additional fees. I get my money instantly. They don't charge me for returns, and they have a higher authorization rate. That's sounding pretty good to merchants.
yeah,
They have a 60% authorization rate for unknowns, and that's where they use that AI, that data they infer from similar types of consumers with the limited data that they have with somebody. They occasionally do run a soft credit check, doesn't affect the credit score, just like all of these. And they'll look and they'll just say, okay, based on this profile that we generate for this person, this is the amount of risk that we have to that, yay or nay. And so they'll say no a little more often, that 40% no, but still
sure,
60% for an unknown consumer is phenomenal. They have a very low default rate as a result of this network vault. So best-in-class loss rates is what it's qualified at. I don't know the actual number. I didn't see that. That's just what Schulman had said, and actually a couple other parties had said as well. And Schulman at least called it the number one buy now, pay later provider in the U.S. That's up for debate. That's qualitative rather than quantitative, but it's one of the best. There's actually a couple of reports that came out in the last few months that were not connected with PayPal in any way, and they had PayPal as the number one buy now, pay later product, and that was on Payments magazine.
Yeah, I saw that PayPal's own, they did an investor presentation. We spoke about it at the time, I think, but whenever John Kim was highlighting buy now, pay later, they said something along the lines of they are 43% chosen as the most preferred buy now, pay later provider. And the next top three, if you were to add all of their scores together, would also equal just about 43% as well. And it gets even higher, above 50%, whenever talking about cohorts that make over $150,000 per year. So the higher end clients actually want to deal with the PayPal name brand for the trust and everything, rather than, like you said, giving your data over to Sezzle or something like this.
Yeah, it's easy. It's well integrated. The merchant knows them, the consumer knows them, and PayPal vice versa. They know the parties involved, and so they have this significant advantage that really no other offer of buy now, pay later products has. Block is maybe number two with Afterpay, just because they have a lot of data on folks, but they're not nearly as widespread as PayPal. So the other thing with PayPal's product that people need to realize as far as like how this would actually impact quarter four. This is a small product. So PayPal has not been super transparent with things. They've not been hiding stuff, but just the way that they've laid out their earnings. Typically, they'll have some numbers for you that they'll have the same every single time, and then they'll feature a product. And so they'll feature something like a buy now, pay later product, maybe like once a year, maybe less. Alex Chris seems like he's going to change that. He's going to add some transparency. So hopefully buy now, pay later is one of those things that we get more information on. But it was 1.5% of the revenue, I believe, a couple of quarters ago. Maybe it's growing extremely rapidly for PayPal, much faster than what was the amount that you had indicated that grew buy now, pay later as a product this holiday season?
The 14% year over year for them in this holiday season.
Yeah.
Buy now, pay later.
Yeah, PayPal's buy now, pay later was growing in the 40% before, but that was because it was very small too. So probably less than larger.
I think back in Q1 of 2023, when was the last time that they showed off the amount of accounts that have used buy now, pay later through PayPal, at least that I can recall, was 32.2 million users. But yet in that same breath, they said, going forward, we have pre-authorized or pre-approved 110 million users to say, hey, if you want to use it, this is the amount that we're willing to give you off the bat, no questions asked. You can use it tomorrow or today, whatever. So I think that's absolutely amazing that whenever you do have a class of 400 million users, as you expand into different geographies, as a selection of customers that are the core audience, you can expand and offer them credit immediately. And then the greatest thing about being in the incumbent, or well, they're not even really the incumbent, but I'd say more of a modern incumbent, if you want to say that, is that as solutions get made by the likes of Affirm and these sorts of things for more of a buy now, pay later card, you're going to see that happen from PayPal as well. Here are these new products that we didn't even have to think about, let alone what we're also innovating on our side as well. But unless there's anything else that you wanted to cover,
yes,
go ahead.
It's really important. So we see good for the consumer as far as they're not paying fees unless they have a longer term or they miss payments. Good for the merchant because they're not paying anything other than PayPal branded. And for PayPal, it's great. It's branded. We already talked about that. But most of these buy now, pay later transactions are actually funded through debit cards, through similar services that have a very low transaction fee for PayPal to pay. And so actually, it's not just that it's branded, but they get to keep a larger percent of that branded fee that they get from the merchant,
because
and that's
the costs are
significant.
lower funding through debit.
And they need all the help they can get to inflect these gross margins. It's not going to happen in Q4. That would be like the surprise of the century. It is happening this next year. Buy now, pay later plays a part of the piece of that. Just one part. There's many parts that have to function in order to get that to turn, but it certainly helps, and we'll take that as investors.
So you said, writing in your article as well, you said lowering transaction costs by roughly 16% is what it was in 2022 for the buy now, pay later sections.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Yeah. No, I'm glad we didn't skip over that, because that's definitely a large part. But I did also want to talk about your thoughts on Q4 and what we're going to see there.
Yeah.
In Q4, in Q3, sorry, Alex Chris, like you said, is going to be adding a bunch of new transparencies, what they said, like KPIs that will stay consistent for you to judge the performance of the company. They said that we've been lacking on that. One of them being buy now, pay later accounts. Hopefully that's one of the things that they stay consistent on covering. And if it's not, maybe we're overblowing how important it is for the company. I'm going to trust management on what they want us to focus on. But what else are you looking to see? I mean, Jamie Miller, we're going to hear from her for the first time as well.
Yeah, that'll be nice to see. I don't know whether the three lieutenants that are over the three new segments of PayPal, how they divided that, will be in the room or not. I hope so. So when Alex Chris came in, Q3, I think, was a diagnosis. He came in, he's an expert in this field. He was hired for a reason, and just everything that he does and has done in the past is just perfect what PayPal needed. And so he added this expert level, in my opinion, diagnosis. I've been studying this company for a while, and I was like, okay, I see these are areas of weakness. I see these are areas of strength, and I see that the next CEO needs to work on these. And he, of course, put them far more eloquently than I ever could, but hit the nail on the head, understood the company in a very short amount of time, and also the direction that the company needed to go, where it could improve, where its strengths were, and laid that out. It's one of the best earnings calls. Actually, I'll just say it. It's the best earnings call I've ever listened to in my life, just as far as the actual presentation. I've listened to some good ones too.
Yeah.
And some not so good. But as far as the results, they were just solid. But so that was a diagnosis. He diagnosed things well. That doesn't mean anything if you don't have the tools to be able to implement on it.
Sure.
Q4 earnings, I believe, is the roadmap. He mentioned those KPIs that he's going to set out, the roadmap forward, that there's efficiency gain that they need to go ahead and do. We'll hear more about that as well. Of course, the goals over the entire next year as they forecast their earnings for 2024. We really need to hear when the gross margins will inflect and have something more definite on that rather than sometime next year. And PayPal keeps rolling it out forever.
Sure.
So that greater level of transparency, I think an Intuit style of transparency, because he comes from that, makes sense. And they have great, not exciting earnings calls, but really well done presentations that are just crystal clear. You're always comparing apples to apples. You have all the information you need on each of the individual business segments, what's working well, what's not, and then those big idea goals, the things that are a little bit further out. And then I think Q1 will be the actual execution. That's when you really start to see these changes be fully implemented, or at least begun to be implemented in a way that you actually begin to see those changes, that PayPal resumes being a growth company. It's growing, but that growth really beginning to accelerate, the greater EPS efficiency, some of the new products coming online, the greater integration that he's talked about, and of course that crystal clear transparency that we're going to see right there in Q4. So that's going to be very exciting.
What about some clarity, like on the Venmo Amazon deal? They talked that up for so long, and then for it to get ripped away from us so quickly. I better hear something on that. I want to know, was this Alex Chris side or Amazon side?
Yeah, I would love as an investor to hear what the rationale was. I think it was they just weren't making any money on it. It didn't make sense to have that partnership. It may have been mutual. Just they weren't making money. Amazon didn't have a huge amount of volume for that anyway. And so Alex Chris just said, it may be largely symbolic, but we're going to pull that back and just not sell
Yeah.
products at a loss anymore. But yeah, that level of transparency is really needed. And it was one of those, I call them Schulmanisms. For Dan Schulman, everything was best in class and the best thing that they've ever done. And this is the best, most amazing partnership. And it was great. And if you listen to Alex Chris, Q3, somebody actually said today on Twitter to me, they're like, well, maybe Alex Chris hyped up earnings for Q4 too much. I said, if you listen to the earnings call, he was not Mr. Hype at all. Like, he was excited about PayPal's future, but he said, hey, there are some real problems and real issues that we're going to face that are not going to be immediate fixes that we're going to do overnight. He had that long-term vision. It's going to take time on some of these things. Some of the things will be actually pretty quick. But I did not hear Dan Schulman in him at all. And plus the excitement standpoint.
So there were a couple things as well. I agree with you. That was one of the things that he talked about as well, was if there's a problem, let's address it, right? We're not going to hide away saying we're the best in the world every single time while we lose market share.
Yeah.
But two, maybe one thing that one of the things that so clearly in the last 3 months that they have addressed, they said, we're going to bring on new top talent. Boy, did you ever.
Yeah.
They did also say right sizing their expenses. I want to know what's going on.
Yes, we need to.
What is going on? I want to know timelines. Are you cutting staff? When's this happening? Because probably during that timeline, I would have expected some level of a cut, and I didn't see one.
Yeah.
I know that, around December, it's probably not the best time to cut, but you had October, you had November. You know what I mean? Cut some staff.
Yeah. And instead they added. So, and there's stock-based compensation from that. So it's like, okay, you're going the opposite direction. Now, I think personally what's happening, the diagnosis came and Alex Chris wanted to bring on these lieutenants who could get to know their segment and use the people that are there to make that informed decision as far as what really is expendable, what is not working well, what they can get rid of, and have some buy-in there. There may have also been a piece with Dan Schulman departing actually a good bit earlier from the board than expected. Dan might have said, you know what, these are my people. I love this company. I don't want to be around in any capacity at all when the cuts are happening.
Sure.
Plus,
Sure.
Christmas. So if there is cuts, I think that there is, just given the language, some internal message boards tend to PayPal. Most PayPal employees that have mentioned something seem to think that there are going to be cuts. I'm guessing that they probably happen in January. And I could have misread the situation. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I just don't see a way that PayPal is not bloated on staff right now, frankly.
They said it themselves. I mean, Alex said it. Like, I don't think, I think you're completely right. They are a bloated company. They said there was, what was the wording? Duplication, not duplication. Maybe let's just say duplication in multiple roles across different segments of the business. That just because they had created different, segments of this company, that they had to remake all these different things that potentially could be automated at some point.
There's automation and duplication. So there's a lot of people doing manual things that don't need to be. And Alex Chris, Intuit uses technology very well. PayPal used to in the past, they kind of lost sight of that a little bit, and they're getting back into it, starting with actually even before John Kim somewhat, but that automation will replace some of those manual tasks. And, when they would bring over from all these mergers and acquisitions they did, it's like, okay, well, these companies come with their own HR teams, and they come with a team that handles this and a team that handles that. PayPal, under Alex Chris, he's like, hey, we don't need this. He and Intuit handled mergers and acquisitions very well. PayPal, frankly, has not. And so he brings that new culture. We need to see real results, though. I think that it's going to be crystal clear transparency. If not, I'm going to be disappointed. But I don't think I'll be disappointed as an investor.
No, I agree with you 100%. There was a lot of parts to it, like whenever he was talking about breaking down the different segments. I don't know if it's too early as of the time whenever he hired the executives to know if we're getting full transparency on a per segment basis in Q4. I'd like to think they've had the numbers since the company has started, that potentially you can throw together those numbers and show investors, break it down, because that'll just make things clearer. We've spoke about it before. Look at the run up that Adyen saw, just adding some transparency to to the investors. Let them see the segments of the business that they need to be focusing on, and which ones do they need to stop overhyping.
And you saw something similar in Block with that long range plan. They said, hey, we're actually sticking to these things, and the cost cutting as well, which included the headcount reduction. They ran hard as well. And PayPal has, it went up a little bit, and I think all that's been given back. Today was rough. So that's just, it's been tough as an investor, but I really think he's bringing meaningful change. It does take a while to change some things in an organization, but I think some of these things can actually be implemented very quickly and starting in Q1. So
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
With Alex Chris' extreme growth mindset, this is a growth company. Do you think that we are going to see potential returns of buyback programs? That they're going to accelerate them, that they're going to keep them consistent? Or do you think that 2023 might have been the, not a wrap, but do you think that we're going to continue to see them opening up to a potential $13 billion of buybacks if they need to,
I think given their free cash flow right now, they've committed to do $5 billion of buybacks for the next 2 years. So $5 billion in 2024, $5 billion in 2025. I think that might be a wrap. It's not that they will never do buybacks again. I think that they will, but that a lot of their future free cash flow is going to be invested back in the business to help ramp. PayPal can do better than growing, an 8 or 9% top line revenue per year. They just can. Sure. And this is the age of AI. A lot of things can be done more efficiently. They can be done better. You have to stay ahead of the competition as well. Braintree is one of those products where, I think it's a very good product. But I've heard that those that have used it think it's okay, but okay might be good enough for PayPal, just given the name recognition and who they are. But I would like to hear more people switching to Braintree, not just because the rates that they're charging are so attractive. Alex Chris has talked about, of course, improving Braintree and other products as well, and then earning the right to, of course, cross-sell additional products on the Braintree platform as well. But they're not there yet. So
yeah.
But that takes money. It's one of those things where, and honestly, if PayPal does what I expect and the stock price goes where I expect over this next year, $5 billion in buybacks right now over this year, it's great. It's going to do a lot. If the price is double, it means half as much. It just does. And if the macro continues to improve and payment service providers continue to thrive, and PayPal starts growing and turning things, it can be a much higher price. And $5 billion, they did buybacks before when the price was sky high during the COVID years. That didn't do a dent to the actual float.
Sure. No, I'm just looking back on some of their quotes, and talk is one thing, right? Being able to say something whenever you're introduced into a new company is one thing, but they want to, reinvest back into the company-wide platform, driving efficiency while also accelerating innovation and cutting expenses. It's like, we're going to do everything perfect on the growth side. We're going to do everything perfect on the saving side. What is Alex Chris going to do going in there? And obviously, a lot of this we're not going to know, but how is it possible that Alex Chris can come in here and completely flip the script when Dan Schulman has not been able to sort of innovate as fastly as Alex Chris or even the industry has been able to do?
Yeah, very different visions. So, and we'll hear more on Alex Chris's in Q4. For Schulman, his big idea was to grow PayPal to this immense size where it was an everything app, that they would do everything. Mm-hmm. And usually, if you are doing everything, then you're doing nothing well. Like you're doing things okay, but as far as actually excelling, not so much. Intuit, and that's the culture that Alex comes from, they have the idea of excellence in all things. Some of the speeches, the internal things that he did with PayPal is trying to rejuvenate that idea of actually doing things with excellence. And so we're going to see, I think, a leaner PayPal that is a lot more cost efficient. And if we didn't live in the age of AI, I'd be like, okay, how can you do all these things at the same time? That'd be very difficult. I think with AI, it's very possible, especially given the data that PayPal has and the lack of integration across their product suite. That they would buy Venmo, they'd buy Braintree, they have PayPal branded, they have these other products as well. And when something rolls out like the PayPal stablecoin, it's like, hey, it's available on your PayPal wallet. And then a month later, it's available on Venmo. It's like that's just silly. Like, why do that? I understand there's code and things that I don't fully grasp there. But Alex Chris himself came in Q3 and he said, this doesn't make any sense. We can do a lot better integration for our consumers, and we will. So I think between better integration of AI, that streamlined focusing on the things that PayPal really does well that are growing, and selling things like happy returns or diminishing things, going away from things that are just not generating money, like the Latin American consumers that they would have to subsidize, the Venmo partnership with Amazon, that's going to help the company. That streamlined focus of what they need to do in the future. The AI will help them as far as some of that automation and cost savings, and continue to improve their product. And I think they have some really good players. Diego Scotti was one of those guys. He's not one of the chief lieutenants, but he came over from Verizon, and he has that very streamlined message, no nonsense kind of guy. One of his former employees actually commented on one of my X threads and talked about how he may have been a challenge to work for, just because the guy was so demanding and so streamlined, because he didn't tolerate nonsense. And frankly, PayPal has had a lot of nonsense that we can just say, hey, you don't need to focus on every single thing under the moon. You don't need to buy Pinterest. Instead, focus on what you do well and do it with excellence using AI and that better integration, and you will earn the right to be a actual growth company, being able to do these things at once. Of course, some may not happen overnight.
I think happy returns is a great start, and we've had this conversation before about AI, but I think you're right. I think that PayPal holds an immense data moat for payments versus other companies, but also every company is going to benefit from automation with AI. And so PayPal included, and maybe even more so, because they still are very much a tech-focused company. They've already talked about how they are, full force ahead going there. But I wanted to pivot just really quickly to two topics, and then we'll wrap from there. One, PayPal Complete Payments. This has been sort of a focus that I know a lot of investors will look at whenever looking at PayPal now, because that's where Alex Chris comes from, right? Comes from small business. Okay, now let's look at small business and merchant accounts for SoFi for PayPal. Because obviously it's more of the complete double-sided network with branded checkout, which means that the rates are super high. So it's a way for us to grow immensely, keep high margins, and potentially get new momentum with the CEO that's actually been there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that I can't think of any better person, honestly, to execute that vision for growing PayPal Complete Payments than Alex Chris. He's an expert there. The person that they brought in, the name of the lady, it slipped my mind, but she comes from Intuit as well. So Alex Chris knew her well, is trusting her with what he probably regards as the centerpiece of the PayPal tech suite.
I think so too.
They've talked about some of the products that they plan to roll out as far as future add-ons for PayPal Complete Payments, FX, for instance, that they plan to do, but they haven't implemented there. And so typically PayPal will do this thing in the past where they'll promise something, they'll say we're working on this, and it'll take years and years to actually come out. And Alex Chris talked about the rate of innovation as well. And so he is usually, at least in Intuit, he was very well loved. He was a talent magnet, but he got things done very quickly. He was an expert in that. So PayPal needs to increase their pace. They need to hone in their vision. And with PayPal Complete Payments, they've been rolling it out to vendors that are under the prior platform. And they're talking about here this year, looking at selling that aggressively to merchants that don't actually do business with PayPal, the small business merchants. So they'll have to drive that. As far as Alex Chris, like Intuit was very, very good at connecting with small businesses. That's how they grew into the company that they are today. So I think we're in good hands. We'll have to see.
And that was him. Like that's,
Yes.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't give a lot of credit to Intuit on that. I'd give a lot of credit to Alex Chris for that.
that's fair. Yeah. He was responsible for more than half their business.
Right.
He was basically like a second CEO for Intuit. But I'm very excited to see where that goes. That's going to help Brandon, like you said. It's not going to happen magically overnight, but things are heading in the right direction. It just takes time. And as far as the time, PayPal has the data. They should be able to look and see. And I think that they may be a bit conservative, but they should be able to look and see and say, okay, this is exactly what we expect will happen, and execute on that. They have to execute.
Sure.
Going into quarter four, if you recall, in quarter three, Alex Chris came in and he actually softened the expectations. They had a double beat. They had a miss on guidance because they softened expectations for quarter four. I think part of that is the board likely letting them know, like, hey, it's better for a new CEO to come in and have a triple beat for earnings rather than come in and miss. You don't want to do that as a CEO for your first earnings, especially when the stock and us stock shareholders have been suffering for so long. So there's a lot of other factors that I think quarter four will actually be very good, but PayPal complete payments, it's going to add to that story, I think, throughout 2024 immensely.
Lastly, and this is probably another large one that I've seen you cover a lot. PayPal USD. You're an absolute pumper. You're trying to pump and dump this cryptocurrency.
That's right. That's going all the way to the moon, which is $1.
Yeah. Maybe you could sell a 10001.
Yes.
Make out like a bandit. Oh, and then the gas fees that come along with them, you're probably a little bit down, but
you would be, yeah. No, we've talked about it some. It's an exciting product. They launched it just in August, and it wasn't with a lot of fanfare. It's used in a couple of different ways, and it looks like it will be used internally, from what I understand as well. The main way is PayPal does not own their payment rails.
right.
And so they have to pay somebody else. And of course, cross-border fees, they make a lot of money from that. As far as PayPal's revenue, their highest grossing product for them is cross-border, as far as not gross, but the transaction fee there itself. But PayPal has to pay a good bit of that to all these toll booths along the way. And one way to bypass that is using something that is not on that payment rail, which is a stablecoin. PayPal is very unique because they're offering this stablecoin. Others have offered stablecoins as well. I won't get too much into the tech side of it, but Paxos backs it. It's a regulated stablecoin. You get those that are watching, look up what that means. There's just 3 in existence that are this level of regulation and stability, because there's been a lot of issues with stablecoins. But it's been a dream of many for a long time to have crypto, and especially stablecoins, integrated within a payment service platform. And PayPal can actually execute that. They are a payment service platform. They don't have to sell merchants on it. They have 30 million merchants. They don't have to sell consumers on it. They have 400 million consumers that trust them and use them each year, and growing. And of course, this is globally. They work very well with regulators. And when PYUSD is used internally for PayPal, where they usually would pay all these checkpoints, they don't pay that anymore. Huge savings to them. They can maybe pass some of that back to the merchant and grow even faster as a result. And of course, they can be used in a traditional sense as well, as far as the way that stablecoins are largely used, just with crypto-only transactions. We've seen the volume spike up immensely. It's very small still. It's not a top 10 stablecoin yet. It may be, I think, within 3 months. So Frax Curve, if you're familiar with that, as PayPal or PayUSD rolls out on these exchanges, you begin to see it being used with greater regularity. You'll see the slippage between what it should be when it's pegged to $1 versus what it actually is when you use it. You'll see that continue to reduce. The higher volumes go up. And of course, we've seen in the month of November and early December, there was this flurry of international exchanges that were all announcing, like, there's multiple, like 3 or 4 every single week. They were like, hey, we've rolled out PayUSD. We've rolled out PayUSD. Some of these, it's like Yellow Card. They have a lot of different stable coins and crypto offerings, but some, like Bullish is one of those. They're using like $8 or $9 million worth of PayUSD every single day, every day. And so the volume's gone up, the market cap has gone up immensely. I'm very excited about the product and how it will be implemented. And I really hope that we get that crystal clear portrayal of what their plans are for the stablecoin this year. This will be the first full year that they've had it.
I think you're 100% right in the idea that the important part, in my opinion, is not even just the consumers that use it. It's how does PayPal use it,
Yes.
right? It's how do they save on costs? Because in my opinion, crypto will be fully utilized whenever people don't even realize that they're using crypto.
Yep.
And that will happen. It's not that's the thing. It's like, oh, I can't imagine my mother using opening up a wallet and then sending coins to another, 25-digit address. It's like, no, that's not what. Of course, that's not going to be what it is. That's the early days. Those are the early adopters. The way that a stable coin with extremely low fees is going to expand is just saving on the back end, for at least for the most part.
Yeah, and it's a really easy sell for PayPal to the consumer. So usually, like if some person that hasn't used stablecoins before is asked, they're going to be like, "Why would I do that? What's the benefit?" Versus if PayPal says, "Hey, if you click this button to use PYUSD for transactions where merchants approve that, we'll convert it automatically. You won't know anything. It's always one for $1. If you have PYUSD in your wallet, you can instantly convert it to a US dollar 24/7, instantaneously. You can send it across the world. We'll even give you $5 to try it out. Maybe there's a little that they'll pass on to that consumer.
Right.
And be like, I mean, if I don't recognize and know what's happening, I just use my transaction the same as always.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take the $5. Why not? It's PayPal. You trust these guys. You use them. So versus somebody else that say, like, hey, you wanna cut of our stable coin? We got a little something we can give you. These guys are shifty. I don't like them. And to be honest, most stable coins and a lot of crypto is shady and shifty. So PayPal not so much.
Yeah, no, I like even the biggest names I'm not comfortable using. I wouldn't use Tether,
No.
And they're the biggest name in the space. So like of course I would want to look to a company that I trust. And if you've ever seen withdrawing on some of these companies, even like Cash App, for example, they say, okay, do you want to send to your bank for free? It's going to take a while, or do you want to do instant payments right now? They give you multiple options on how to withdraw. But it's going to be the same way for whenever you do certain payments or stuff, where it's like, do you want to do it the traditional way where if it's cross-border, you're going to pay this percentage? Or do you want a little hookup over here and pay a much less percentage, even though the margins still might even be higher over on the PayPal USD side, but it'll still be such a massive difference. And all of the perks will be there. So they won't force you to use one or the other, maybe at least not yet because of the regulation.
Oh, yeah.
Once stable coins really get into place and regulators trust that they are pegged to the dollar, maybe, they will trust it like currency, but for now it's a crypto. But it's definitely leading to a lot more innovation in the payment space, and one that helps with cross-border nano payments, all these different things that people need to go more and more digital. So very exciting.
And with that, like the biggest thing that's happening this next quarter, I think it's this next quarter, is Frax is rolling out PayUSD. They've acquired something like $36 million worth of PayUSD, which that's more than 10% of all the PayUSD in existence right now. And the founder of Frax is extremely serious. He's basically like, hey, this is it. PayUSD is going to be what is actually going to enable this link that we've been missing in the crypto space between real world transactions and crypto. And he's like, hey, and Frax, we get to be in the middle of it. And so he's actually extremely bullish and excited, and that got some Frax folks excited about PayPal. And I didn't know about Frax other than I mentioned. I'm like, what is Frax again? It's like a crypto thing. Oh, this is what they do. Interesting. So it's going to be an interesting quarter, but I hope we get a little glimmer of that with the earnings.
Yeah, no, I'm very, very excited. Roy, thank you so much for coming on. For anyone that doesn't know where to find Roy, you can check him out on X. His thing. Let me see if I got that. Oh, I'm getting so good at that.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to go a little bit over, a little bit.
Fist bump.
You're on the wrong side.
Oh, I'm on the wrong side. It looks like.
Oh, on your screen it looks. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I guess we're on the opposite side. We'll see how it shows on the actual video.
We'll see who's right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. Really do appreciate your time. But until next time, bye for now.